All right, Tatsmewe, Makis Katiayo, Nimiipuu, Poko Simak, Swapo Timki, Anthony Capetillo. I am the research biologist for the Nez Perce Tribe's Aquatic Invasive Species Program, and we also got nuisance species that we're looking at on there as well. And I would like to talk with you guys about kind of what we've been doing. And right now, we're kind of up in the air with some of the things because we've run into some issues with funding, but we've really positioned ourselves to really be able to do a lot more than the funding that we have right now is that we're capable of doing with that funding. So we're trying to kind of find a balance here where we can kind of use the funding that we have available and the funding that we do know is coming to do as much work as we can and kind of move forward with the plans that we have because there is a lot that we really do have going on for us and we're really excited to really get into it. So in the beginning, when we first got this funding back in 2021, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do because we knew that there's a big issue with invasive species in our area, and we wanted to kind of start off with kind of confirming the invasive species that were in the trout ponds that the tribe puts trout into. They raise trout and they'll put them in these ponds for the communities and in those areas to fish from. And so we were hearing that there are invasive species in those areas, so we wanted to go ahead and confirm that and make sure that we knew what was out here and then kind of just kind of get our feet wet and get us going. And so once we got that confirmed, we knew that we wanted to do a lot more with our project. We wanted to be more impactful for our community and for the Pacific Northwest as a whole. And so we started looking at what is impacting kind of the salmonids. That became our big interest. What's impacting our salmonids? What the most important resource for the Nez Perce tribe and many of the Columbia River tribes as well. And so we start looking at the problems that we're facing. And with our wild spring and summer Chinook populations, you can see here that 42% of them are either at or below the quasi-extinction threshold, and about 19% of our summer steelhead are at or below that threshold as well. And so that's a really big issue for us because we're losing our salmon populations up here. And when you look at the hatchery, because those are the wild, and when you look at the hatchery, the Nez Perce tribe releases about 14 million salmonids every year, and our estimated returns are consistently less than 1%. And so that's a really big issue, and we really want to find out what is going on and why are these fish struggling so much. And when you look at this map here, you'll see that the scientists are predicting that the Chinook that are in these areas, and the salmon basin in particular, they're going to be gone by the end of the century if nothing drastic really happens. And so we're really concerned about that. And as an invasive species, a nuisance species program, we're really interested in trying to really tackle this issue and find out what we can do to help improve those numbers because there's so many things hitting our salmon. And so we took on this mission with the rest of the Department of Fisheries Resources Management, and we want to protect and restore all native species and populations of anadromous and resident fish and their habitats. And that's consistent with the Nimiipuu way of life and beliefs, and it recognizes the reserved rights that are stated within the Treaty of 1855. And so looking at this ICC boundary, we kind of expanded from the 1863 reservation, which is where all those ponds were, and we really expanded that out to the entire ICC territory, which is the green shaded area here. So there's a lot of tributaries there. There's a lot of issues going on in those parts. And so we needed to take a deeper look. Okay, well, what invasive species do we have in these areas? So you can see that map kind of with a bit more detail on here, and you can see all the different invasive species that we have coming up the Snake River here. I don't know if you can see the cursor, but coming up the Snake River here into the Salmon River and then the Clearwater River here. So we got a lot of invasive species, and you can see where they're overlapping with our hatchery operations, with our acclimation sites, where we're releasing fish. And no matter where we put fish in our area, they're going to deal with invasive species, a number of invasive species on their way out to the ocean and on their way back. And so we really wanted to take a look at kind of which one of these can we tackle, because some of the ones on the list here we're not really looking at right now because we're looking at what's impacting the salmonids the most. And so we're looking at invasive fish. Some of these are considered game fish in some of the Pacific Northwest, but we're really going to keep looking at them as invasive because they don't really belong here. They didn't ask to be here, but they don't belong here. And so you can see here the walleye can account for about a third of the predation loss in annual salmonids in the Columbia River. Smallmouth bass are estimated to take about 860,000 sub-yearlings, and that's above Lower Granite Dam. And northern pike are not in our area quite yet, but they're in the upper Columbia. They got one more reservoir to get through before they hit anadromous waters. And we're assuming that they're just going to turn up the Snake River and follow the rest of the fish and come chomp here. and they feed primarily on soft fin fish, which is salmonids in our area. And so with these fish reaching our region where the spawning and the rearing habitat is, these predation issues are only going to increase. And so we're really concerned about that, and we're really trying to keep a close eye on that for both our wild and our hatchery fish. And so furthermore, kind of with the walleye, they're not necessarily new. They've been coming over Lower Granite Dam since about 2016. But in recent years, 2024, Idaho Fish and Game started asking for reports from anglers on walleye catch. And so they put together this map here where you can see kind of the representation over some of the years where they have been reported and how that really took off with reports this last year. And you can see how they're really getting into the Snake River, and they're even up into the Salmon River up to Riggins where the Time Zone Bridge is. They've been caught all the way up to the Hells Canyon Dam, right around the mouth of the salmon where it comes into the Snake and where the Clearwater comes into the Snake as well. No reports on the Clearwater River yet, but we're kind of assuming they have to be in there somewhere. Because it's just such a pristine area, and we're really concerned about these guys really taking hold, because you can see here that they're not a very pretty predator. They got really sharp teeth, and they could do a lot of damage. And so the Idaho Fish and Game is asking for people to catch, kill, report. The Nez Perce tribe, we're working on trying to get some kind of bounty program started. We were going to try to get that going in the next couple of years, but we're not sure where we're at with funding on that. So we're going to have to put that on the table for a little while. But we're definitely trying to get the Nez Perce tribal members involved, the community involved. We want to use kind of traditional ecological knowledge. They can put gill nets out there or any other traditional gear that they might have, and hopefully kind of put a real hit on these walleye before they get established like the smallmouth bass, because the smallmouth bass are just, it seems like there's so many that in some areas their growth might be stunted a little bit. And I'm proud to report that last weekend I finally caught my first walleye ever. Went out with some of the friends, and one of my friends' little brother is a fishing guide, so I basically got a free fishing trip with them. Been getting paid for the past couple weeks to catch a walleye, but couldn't catch one to save my life. Finally caught one here below Lower Granite Dam where they're more abundant, because up here above Lower Granite Dam, it's kind of like searching for a needle in a haystack for us right now. But we're trying to hone in our skills on that so we can really start doing some removals to tonight and tomorrow. I believe we're actually going to start doing some night operations where we're going to go out and do a little bit of spotlighting. So hopefully we can get a good idea of kind of where they're at, where they're trying to spawn at, because they're into their spawning now, and hopefully find some ways that we can at least get rid of them before, and kind of get an idea of what's going on, where we can catch them, where we can tell the tribal public to go catch them. Hopefully work with Fish and Wildlife Commission to encourage tribal members to start catching them, or work something out with them to where we can get the public more involved, the tribal public. And so with those fish that we caught this last weekend, we looked in the gut contents, and it's pretty disturbing to see a Pacific lamprey in there. We know that smallmouth bass feed on them quite a bit, and it's pretty obvious that walleye would as well. There's on Monday there was a gentleman that did a presentation that kind of showed white sturgeon and Pacific lamprey get preyed on pretty heavily by walleye compared to bass. So we're really concerned about that, and not really sure exactly how big that impact is right now, but definitely going to be looking at stomachs as we move forward with any walleye that we catch. And so outside of the walleye issue, um, we're looking at invasive mussels as well. And they're a big concern for us because of the characteristics that they kind of, in their different life stages, single quagga or zebra mussel can filter about 1 liter of water per day. And if you get hundreds of thousands of them in an area, that can have a really big impact on the ecosystem. And they've been known to crash entire ecosystems and populations of native species. The Great Lakes, they've had really big impacts there. And so we're really concerned about them because the quagga popped up in southern Idaho, which is upstream of us in the Snake River. So we're really worried about them getting downriver into the Najamis zone. We have our fish hatcheries, our acclimation sites, basically anything that we do with raw water, any place that we release fish, it could potentially be heavily impacted, cost a bunch of money for us to maintain and maintenance, just stuff that we don't necessarily have the money for or the capacity to deal with. And so we really want to try to keep people aware of this issue and try to stay ahead of that problem. And so kind of further into that, this kind of shows what the Idaho Department of Ag, they've been spearheading all the efforts on kind of the quagga mussel issues here, because they are the invasive species leads in the Idaho state. And so all the blue that you see on this map here, those are the places where they're taking samples, and the red are where they have the positive hits. Thankfully, the positive hits in 23 and 24 were not very big numbers for each of those. They're really small plumes. So hopefully the treatments that they did in the last couple of years are going to be effective. But The problem with that treatment is that it killed about 7 tons worth of fish in the first year, not so much in the second year, but luckily it was mostly hatchery or invasive game fish, and so no anadromous species. But that's why we're concerned about them getting into the lower system, because if we do that treatment here, we have anadromous and a lot of other species that we're concerned about that would be impacted by that treatment. And on top of that, earlier this year in January, there were about 21 gallons of zebra and quagga mussels removed from a tugboat in Spokane. And then in the last maybe I think 3 years, where there's been 2 instances of moss balls having invasive mussels on them in the aquarium trade. And so we're just kind of getting hit from all sides. And now there's a new historical introduction, which we heard about on Monday as well. Excuse me. So the golden mussel that popped up in California, and we're really concerned about them, even though it seems like a long ways away. We're concerned about them because it's possible that they were introduced through a shipping vessel, and we do have shipping vessels that come up the Columbia all the way to Lewiston to our area. So we're concerned for introduction there. And these golden mussels have a very wide environmental tolerance, much more than zebra and quagga mussels. So all the rivers and streams that we thought were safe from zebra or quagga are now at risk for these golden mussels. And they can attach to a lot more variety of substrates, also not just hard substrates like quagga and zebra. These golden mussels can settle in sediment at like sand and muck and different places like that. So they can pop up pretty much anywhere, and they can grow up to about 2 inches, to where zebra and quagga will be about the size of your thumbnail. So they get a bit bigger as well. And so we're definitely keeping an eye on that issue and trying to stay ahead of those as well. And so what we're doing to kind of assist with the prevention and monitoring, sorry. So in Kamiah, Idaho, or Kuski, Idaho, there's a watercraft inspection station that we're looking at taking over here in the near future. So we're going to be kind of working with them on kind of taking that over, and kind of who's going to funding the positions there, making sure that we have enough staff to run that station. We're also going to be kind of assisting here and there with the station in Washington, just outside of Clarkston. Then we're working with working dogs for conservation out of Montana, because we're trying to develop a canine team, or actually 2 canine teams, so that we can get mussel dogs out there sniffing watercraft and kind of inspecting some of our hatcheries or release locations, and basically target areas where we're concerned about mussels popping up. We want to get a canine team out there to do surveys. We're not exactly sure where we are with that, but it sounds like we do have funding to move forward with that. So we're really excited, and hopefully we can go ahead and move forward with that. So really getting education out there on clean, drain, dry, inspecting your vehicles. We're looking at the check-in, check-out with CD3 as well. So people can, when they show up to a water body where we have these QR codes on a sign, they can check in, basically tell people what they're doing, what activity, if they're fishing, rafting, just hunting, whatever it is, activity they're doing, what kind of watercraft they have. And then it actually has something on there to show them or tell them how to properly clean, drain, dry their vessel when they leave the water body. And we're also excited to announce that we finally got our own CD3 station. We've been trying to get one for the last couple of years, but for some reason or another, we were unable to acquire one. So Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife had one in their shop, kind of sitting around. They didn't need it for some reason or another. I think they had enough stations put out, so they were willing to sign it over to us, and we're really excited and grateful to have it. And we're looking at putting that on Wallowa Lake, which we're worried about New Zealand mud snails and also other invasive mussels getting into that very pristine area. That's where the Nez Perce tribe is trying to do sockeye and I believe kokanee reintroductions. So we're trying to support those efforts as well. And so on top of that, we're working with the Nez Perce Tribe Department of Fisheries Resources Management as a whole to try and get most employees, if not all, a level 1 and level 2 watercraft inspection and decontamination training. So that way they know what the issues are. They know how to identify the issues on their vessels or in their operations. And on top of that, we are looking at doing a HACCP course with them as well. So that kind of a biosecurity, so we can really break down where could we be unknowingly transporting invasive species? How do we get ahead of that and prevent that? And then offering those services to the tribal public as well, because we're trying to get a hot seat to kind of pair with the CD3 stations that we want to get on a trailer, so we can actually go to different field offices or different sites, or have people come to us so we can decontaminate their watercrafts and their equipment for them free of charge. So that way we can really kind of get the information out there, help people learn the importance of this kind of this movement, this efforts, and what we're trying to do. And so Avian predators are another thing that we're looking at. So, like as I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff that we have going on. We're getting hit from all these different angles. Avian predators are on top of that as well. We have them listed as a nuisance species for our area. We're looking at cormorants, white pelicans, great blue herons, and gulls. Um, as you can see here in the middle, we got a great blue heron in one of our acclimation facilities. And one morning I drove through there and there's about 6 of these blue herons that come flying out of these ponds. And they're not very big ponds, but they do hold a lot of fish. And so we're kind of showing some pretty good evidence that we need to do some facility upgrades and kind of encouraging that with the facility managers who are looking for funding for some of those issues now to try and get ahead of that and keep these birds out. And so we're monitoring the different colonies and different congregation areas, really keeping an eye. I think we got about half a dozen areas that we're really keeping a close eye on, where cormorants are kind of lining up on a USGS cable. We have a rookery right there by the museum that's actually upstream of that cable, some islands and gravel bars where they're really kind of really conjugating. And we found that these birds are coming around our hatchery releases. And so there's kind of an inside joke. Well, who gave these birds our hatchery release schedule? Because they're showing up about a week before we start the releases, hitting our fish really hard and basically following them downstream. And we're also concerned about them starting nesting colonies like the cormorants and pelicans. We're worried about them nesting up here because if they begin to nest up here, then that's going to be an even bigger issue than we have now because they'll be here year round like the herons are. And so we're really trying to keep a close eye on them, working on different methods of kind of hazing and monitoring. And so one of the things that we're looking at right now is kind of using drones. And so we're trying to find thermal imaging. And so you can see in this first picture here, you can't really see a whole lot of the birds until you look at it through that thermal lens. And you can even see these darker blue areas here. Those are actually the cold spots in the nest that we're looking at too. And so we're interested in looking at these nests and these rookeries areas because we want to see if there's co-nesting going on, if we have cormorants that are nesting in with the blue herons or and kind of the success of the nesting and the populations too, because we're hoping that maybe we can get some images of some eggs or something else that's going on. But we have to be really careful with a lot of stuff because once they start nesting and dropping eggs, we can't really do anything to disturb them. But with these drones, we're thinking that we can do a lot of monitoring without having to worry about a lot of those issues. And here's some more images where you can really look at kind of the benefits of kind of being able to look at it through a different lens and kind of seeing things that you don't really see initially from a first picture. So we can really get a good idea of kind of what these birds are and hoping that we can use these images to identify them as well, not just kind of count them, but identify them and kind of tell the differences. And so some of the hazing that we're doing, we've got these pyrotechnics that are we called screamers and bangers. We started off with kind of Blaine Parker. He started off graciously, kind of gave us some shotgun shells that we started using. Unfortunately they don't make those anymore, so we had to move to these other pyrotechnics. We also have green lasers that we've been using. They're most effective at nighttime, but they do get a little bit of attention during the daytime, especially when it's kind of cloudy over and kind of not so bright. Um, and so we're finding pretty quickly that the pyrotechnics aren't working as great on the pelicans because when they get in the larger groups, they kind of I guess they feel safe. And so we actually had to chase them on a boat to actually get the effect that we wanted and kind of keep firing the pyrotechnics at them as we were moving downstream, chasing them downstream. And that seemed to be the most effective, but there's indication now that we might have to move into lethal take sooner than we anticipated. Not sure what the process is going to be to get the permitting on that or what that's all going to take, but it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be looking into because we are interested in looking at the stomachs of these animals and seeing what is it that they're eating when they get here early because they show up early enough to where we don't think there's any of our salmonids in the system, but maybe there is. We're just not really sure. So we'd like to see what they're eating in the early season, how big of the impact is while they're here, while the fish are moving, and what they're eating after the fish are gone and the few birds that are hanging out here. And so the reason why we're doing all this work is because we really want to protect the Nimiipuu culture, the past, the present, the future. You know, all the obligations that our ancestors set forth, they're talked about in our traditional stories. We're trying to honor those and we're trying to protect that for our future generations and trying to teach these children, you know, the best practices now so that they can grow up and develop them even further and they can spread this information for the next seven generations and keep our practices and keep our resources in a safe state. And so that's why education and outreach has really become a big focus for our program recently, especially in the last year or so. So we've been out there connecting with people, trying to go to different events as much as we can, going to career fairs and such. Um, and so we kind of started out locally, speaking with some schools and doing a few local events, but eventually we start getting spreading out a little bit. We got to present to the Washington Invasive Species Council in Olympia. We got to go to Spokane and speak to some people with legislative representation in the audience. And we even got to do some national events, like over in Honolulu, Hawaii at the National AFS conference, and which was a really great experience as well. And so we've got to visit a lot of schools as well. We've visited, I think, about a dozen schools or so now, first through 12th grade, doing a lot of different types of activities with them, still head in the classroom, different types of presentations, fish dissections, stream observations, a lot of amazing things. And these are the tribal and state partners that we have that we've worked with in some capacity, either sharing information, planning training, getting educational materials. You know, we've had some really great partners. The Colville Reservation tribe is actually going to be giving us some gill nets, so we can start getting at these walleye. And then these are our other state and local and federal partners. And so I just kind of want to show these because for two people working in this project, we've been able to reach out to 26 partners across 5 different states in the last 3 years. And that's pretty huge for us. And we really want to keep that growing, keep that list growing, keep those relationships growing, and really keep working with as many people as we can because we're all in this together. We're all facing these issues as a people. And so I really want to thank everybody for your attention today and really appreciate your attendance here. And thank you very much.